Hello, church. It's Pastor Steve here with our Monday Minute for March the 14th of 2022. First and foremost, happy Pi Day, be it at 3:14 or 3.14 for those of you who are in the know. And we hope you celebrate that with whatever jokes or other things that you do. But it's a fun time that we can have with our dates here as well. We also want to wish everyone, especially from an Irishman like myself, a happy St. Patrick's Day coming up this week as well. And hopefully we all have survived the time change, or at least are adjusting to that survival after daylight savings time this past week. But I know we'll all appreciate warmer weather coming this week, as well as more daylight to enjoy that weather too when we get used to that. We also, as a church, want to celebrate the newness that is coming here that we have just found out this July. We were pleased to announce yesterday that the Reverend Chad Parmalee will be coming to be your new lead pastor here at Newburgh following my departure, where I'm heading off to be the new senior pastor at Grand Rapids First United Methodist. We want to encourage everyone to be in prayer for Pastor Chad and for his wife Roshan as they make that transition here. They are also going to be celebrating a marriage of one of their daughters coming up here right before Easter. So we want to take that time to pray for them and for the ministry that they will be leaving at his current church in Battle Creek, and for the ministry that he will be coming to here to serve among you at Newburgh. And we'll look forward to having you get to know Chad in the days and weeks to come, and do our best to have a smooth transition so he can hit the ground running with you all right away this coming July. For now, however, though, we are here in the second Sunday of Lent, and we are continuing our series that is using Walter Brueggemann's book, A Way Other Than Our Own, as our weekly discipleship, and how we follow Jesus along that path, and how Jesus forms and shapes us along the way. This week, as I was reflecting on the gospel passage that was actually prescribed, which comes from Luke 13, starting with verse 31 and going on through Luke 13, verse 35. I read a portion of that in the sermon yesterday, but I think it's important for us to continue the part of the story that Jesus says after he tells the Pharisees that he's not going anywhere from Herod. And then in verse 34, Jesus laments Jerusalem and their unbelief. And he says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" Of course, referring to Jesus' triumphal entry back into Jerusalem, setting forward the events of Holy Week leading up to his death on a cross on Good Friday. But I think it's important for us to hear how Jesus is wanting, desiring to reach out and for those to hear and to listen to his words and to accept the grace that God gives to them through Jesus Christ himself, the grace that God gives to all of us. But a lot of times what we do is we give in to fear, and we cling to that which we already know, afraid of the change that might be coming and the unknown that goes with that. But Jesus tells us that we should not be afraid. But yet, our reaction to that oftentimes is that we are afraid. And we react to it in sometimes desperate and even sometimes, as Jesus says here, violent ways. But this should not be the case. We seem to have a lot more uncertainty now than we have had before. Even with all the technology that we're using that enables me to come to you like this, the technology that we're able to communicate. We're in a time of war and conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and wondering what is going to happen as a result of that for our sake, not just for the economic sake of what we're dealing with here at home, but for the long haul. We're still living in the shadow of a pandemic of COVID-19, which has hit us once again here on our staff. We are still living with uncertainty. We are still living with a degree of fear. And oftentimes our reaction can be to lash out, to cling to what it is that we know, wanting to go back to something that we nostalgically think was, but really in the reality, it wasn't as good as we think it is. Mainly, what we are called to do, as Jesus says, is to stay grounded in following his path. Jesus' path, as he says earlier in that passage, is to cast out demons, to release people of those who have been afflicted with them. He is performing cures and healings. He is the one who is proclaiming resurrection. And that is what we, as the body of Christ, are also called to do in the midst of all of this, without fear, or at the very least confronting that fear with the power that we have through God and through the grace of Jesus Christ himself. And it means that if we have that with the spirit of love in our hearts, we can bear all of this and we can endure all this, but we can also be a sign of hope. That if we follow that path, if we follow the Jesus path, not necessarily the path that we would choose, but the path that Jesus is leading us on, then we can overcome all these obstacles and show the world that there is a different way, starting with our own place right here, just as Jesus started there with Jerusalem. So in these coming days and weeks where we had some uncertainty about who was going to be our new pastor here at Newburgh, but now we know. And yet there is still some uncertainty as you get to know Pastor Chad and his family and what that future might bring. Embrace that with an open mind and know and trust that God is working within all of us to set the right course for Newburgh. As we continue to watch the news headlines of what is happening in Ukraine, let us be in prayer for those people, but let us also be in prayer for our resolve to do what we are called to do, to offer our support in whatever ways that we can, and doing, as I would say, anything that we can to resist the violence and oppression that we might be so tempted to return, but to know that love and faith conquers all. As we do that this week, I know and I trust that as we go through our Lenten journey, we will be well on the way following that path that may not be of our own choosing, but it's a path that Jesus will lead us to and that we can invite others to choose with us. Have a great week. God's blessings to you. Be in prayer for the Parmalee family and for Pastor Chad and his congregation as they have just announced that he's leaving and will be getting a new pastor as well. And for all those times of transition as we move in deeper to this Lenten season with the anticipation of that resurrection on Easter Sunday. And then we'll see you back here next week for another edition of the Monday Minute.